When I installed that security camera, I never imagined I'd watch my pregnant wife tell our nanny she couldn't wait to start their new life together, using the engagement ring I'd found hidden in her jewelry box, thinking it was meant for our anniversary. My phone slipped from my trembling hands and cracked against the hotel bathroom tile as the security footage continued playing. There was Olivia, my wife of 8 years and mother of my children, pressing our nanny Madison against the kitchen island where we'd had breakfast as a family just 72 hours earlier. Their kiss wasn't a hesitant exploration. It was the practiced intimacy of long-term lovers. The sound of Olivia whispering, "I've never loved anyone like I love you," hit me with physical force, doubling me over as if I'd been punched. I'm Jack, 35, a software developer who thought he had the American dream. A beautiful colonial in Boston's suburbs, 2 amazing boys, a black Labrador named Chief, and what I believed was a rock-solid marriage to my college sweetheart. I'm sharing my story not for sympathy but because what happened next taught me about strength I never knew I possessed. The Seattle business trip was supposed to be my career's highlight, pitching our startup to investors who could change our financial future forever. Instead, at 1:17 a.m. in my luxury hotel room, I watched 8 years of marriage disintegrate on a 6-inch screen. I kept rewinding the footage, searching desperately for some innocent explanation, some alternative reality where this nightmare wasn't happening. But then came the words that shattered any remaining denial. Olivia caressed Madison's stomach and whispered, "This baby will be the start of our real family. Jack never has to know it isn't his." The pregnancy test I'd found in our bathroom trash last week, the one that had filled me with elation, prompting me to secretly buy a silver baby rattle, suddenly took on a horrifying new meaning. Madison's voice was clear in the footage. "What if he notices the timing is off?" Olivia laughed. "He's so obsessed with his precious startup, I could probably give birth in the guest room and he wouldn't notice." My body revolted against this reality. I vomited violently until only bitter bile remained. My lungs refused to function properly, each breath a conscious struggle. Sweat drenched my dress shirt as I collapsed against the cool marble, the phone still playing their conversation about how they'd break the news after my convenient business trip next month. I lay there wondering how the same woman who'd once written me love letters every anniversary could now be orchestrating my destruction with such calculated precision. Looking back, I can pinpoint the exact moment I fell in love with Olivia. It wasn't when she corrected our economics professor in sophomore year, though her confidence was magnetic. It wasn't even during our first kiss under campus streetlights during an unexpected snowfall. It was 2 weeks into dating, when she showed up at my dorm at midnight with chicken soup, because she'd just had a feeling I was coming down with something. The flu had just begun its assault, and there she was, somehow knowing before I did what I needed. That intuitive connection defined our early relationship. We built our love through late-night study sessions where she'd absently twirl her auburn hair around one finger while highlighting textbooks, and weekend road trips in my beat-up Civic, windows down, singing off-key to whatever came on the radio. We crossed the graduation stage together, her hand clasped so tightly in mine I could feel her pulse racing in excitement for our future. When I proposed 2 years later at the lighthouse where her parents had met, dropping to one knee as waves crashed dramatically against the rocks below, she cried so hard she couldn't speak for a full minute, just nodded and clutched me with an intensity that made me believe our connection was unbreakable. Our wedding vows were handwritten, promises so personal they made even my stoic father tear up. We honeymooned in Greece, sketching our 5-year plan on a taverna napkin, careers established by 30, first child by 32, second by 35, dream home in the suburbs with a yard large enough for weekend barbecues and a dog. I still have that napkin, laminated and faded in my desk drawer, a relic from a future that once seemed inevitable. By our 7th anniversary, I was pulling 70-hour weeks at a fintech startup where I'd been made CTO. The stock options alone promised generational wealth if we secured our Series C funding. Olivia had been promoted to creative director at her agency, managing campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. We had our boys, Ryan, 5, and Tyler, 3, exactly on schedule. From the outside, we were that couple friends, both admired and secretly resented. Ambitious, successful, with adorable children and Instagram-perfect family vacations. But success demanded sacrifice. Date nights became rare, then perfunctory when they happened at all. Conversations rarely ventured beyond scheduling logistics or surface-level work anecdotes. When we did find ourselves alone, we were so depleted that meaningful connection seemed impossible. Both of us reflexively reaching for our phones, her falling asleep before I came to bed, me taking my laptop to the porch to squeeze in a few more hours of coding. We weren't unhappy. At least, I didn't think we were. Just temporarily sacrificing presence for the promise of a secure future where we'd finally have time for each other. The turning point came one Tuesday afternoon when I received a call from Ryan's preschool. I was in the middle of a critical code review and almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Ryan's teacher explained that neither Olivia nor I had shown up for his important Person Day presentation. His small voice in the background explained through tears that his parents were the busiest, most important people, but that's why they couldn't come. That night, Olivia sat at our kitchen island, face pale with self-recrimination, and suggested hiring a live-in nanny, someone to provide the stability and attention our boys deserved while we navigated the most demanding phase of our careers. "My fitness instructor knows literally the perfect person," she said, reaching for my hand with an earnestness I hadn't seen in years. "She has a master's in early childhood education and is between jobs right now. It feels like the universe is giving us a sign." The universe, I would later discover, had nothing to do with it. Madison arrived for her interview carrying a portfolio containing personalized activity plans for each boy based on developmental psychology principles. At 28, with impeccable references I verified personally, she seemed heaven-sent. She moved into our guest suite the following weekend and transformed our chaotic household into a smoothly functioning system within days. The boys adored her adventurous spirit and seemingly infinite patience. For the first time in years, the constant background anxiety of juggling it all diminished to a whisper. What I completely missed, blinded by relief and professional ambition, were the 100 subtle shifts occurring right before my eyes. It started with small things. Olivia suddenly developing interest in home decor after years of indifference, consulting Madison on every purchase. She began cooking elaborate weekend brunches, standing suspiciously close to Madison at the kitchen counter. Her practical wardrobe transformed into stylish, attention-grabbing pieces that Madison enthusiastically complimented. At the time, I was simply grateful that Olivia seemed happier and more engaged with our home life. The first undeniable warning sign appeared exactly 8 weeks after Madison joined our household. Olivia developed a pattern of working late 3 specific nights each week: Tuesday, Thursday, and every other Friday. During our company's summer barbecue, her assistant mentioned being confused by Olivia's new habit of leaving the office earlier than usual on those exact days. When I casually raised this discrepancy over breakfast, Olivia's coffee cup froze midway to her lips before she smoothly explained she was working from the downtown co-working space to avoid office distractions during critical campaign development. Her physical transformation became impossible to ignore. She switched from her signature vanilla perfume, the scent I'd given her every anniversary since college, to a citrusy fragrance Madison had recommended. She replaced her practical professional wardrobe with form-fitting outfits that seemed designed for someone else's appreciation. Most tellingly, Olivia password protected her phone for the first time in our marriage, claiming, "Client materials are just too sensitive now with my promotion." Madison's behavior toward me shifted subtly but unmistakably. Her initially warm communication style became evasive. She began avoiding eye contact during our morning exchanges, suddenly remembering urgent tasks when conversations extended beyond small talk. She developed an uncanny ability to change subjects whenever I asked about Olivia's schedule, offering carefully constructed non-answers. The incident that should have shattered my willful blindness occurred on a Tuesday evening when a server outage brought me home 4 hours earlier than expected. I found them sharing my prized 30-year-old Macallan Scotch, a wedding gift I'd been saving for our 10th anniversary, on our couch, laughing with an intimacy that made me feel like an intruder in my own home. They physically jumped apart, Olivia's hand withdrawing from Madison's knee as if burned. Their elaborate explanation about celebrating Madison's job offer from her previous family rang hollow, especially since neither had mentioned this supposedly significant development at breakfast. 3 days later came the moment that would later haunt my dreams. Ryan looked up from his breakfast cereal with innocent confusion in his eyes. "Daddy," he asked while Madison was upstairs helping Tyler dress, "why does Mommy and Madison have sleepovers in your bed when you're gone? And why do they lock the door even when Tyler has bad dreams?" The cereal spoon slipped from my fingers, milk splattering across our kitchen island. I mumbled something about grown-ups sometimes needing private conversations, but Ryan's follow-up question sent ice through my veins. Then why was Mommy crying and saying Madison's name over and over last night? Was she having nightmares too? Children see with unclouded eyes what adults desperately try to obscure, even from themselves. Ryan's questions planted seeds of doubt I couldn't extract no matter how frantically I tried to rationalize them away. Our bedroom was directly above his. Sound traveled. Children don't invent specific details like locked doors and crying out names. Once my awareness awakened, I noticed dozens of previously invisible betrayals. Hushed conversations that abruptly ended when I entered rooms. Inside jokes punctuated with lingering touches. The way they communicated through glances with the fluency of longtime lovers. Madison would casually touch Olivia's lower back when passing behind her, a gesture reserved for intimate partners. Olivia would visibly brighten when Madison entered a room, then catch herself and dim her reaction upon noticing my presence. My gut screamed warnings, yet my heart constructed elaborate defenses against the truth. I didn't want to be the jealous, controlling husband who questioned his wife's friendships. I couldn't bear acknowledging that the foundation of our marriage might be crumbling beneath my feet. Most painfully, I refused to confront what those realizations would mean for our children, our extended families, and the carefully constructed life we'd spent a decade building. But that night, watching Madison tuck a strand of hair behind Olivia's ear, with the intimate familiarity that was once my privilege alone, something inside me finally broke. I knew I couldn't hide from the truth any longer, no matter how devastating the consequences might be. I ordered the security system at 3:17 a.m. during a particularly brutal night of insomnia, watching Olivia's peaceful sleep with a growing sense of disconnect. The high-definition camera with night vision and audio capabilities arrived while Olivia attended a client appreciation lunch, and I installed it within an antique wooden bookend my grandfather had carved, positioned perfectly to capture our entire living room without detection. I justified this invasion of privacy by telling myself I needed definitive proof either way, to confirm my growing suspicions or, hopefully, to dispel them and free me from this corrosive doubt. For the first time in our relationship, I looked my wife directly in the eyes and deliberately lied about the security upgrade. Her casual acceptance, with barely a curious glance at the device's location, only intensified my unease. 3 days later, I boarded a flight to Seattle for our startup's make-or-break investor presentation. My thoughts obsessively circled around what might be happening in my absence, 3,000 miles and 3 time zones away. That night, after mechanical networking with potential investors, I returned to my hotel room and paced for 45 excruciating minutes before finally opening the security app on my phone. The app showed 3 motion-triggered recordings. The first 2 captured ordinary moments: Madison turning off lights, Olivia arriving home. Normal domestic scenes that briefly made me feel shameful for my suspicions. Then I opened the 3rd recording, time-stamped 11:47 p.m. They were in our kitchen, the heart of our home where we'd celebrated every milestone with our boys. Olivia perched on the island counter, Madison standing between her legs, their foreheads touching as they spoke in intimate whispers. "I took the test this morning," Olivia was saying, her voice tender with excitement I hadn't heard in years. "It's positive." Madison's hands flew to her mouth before moving to caress Olivia's stomach. "Our baby," she whispered reverently. I can't believe the insemination actually worked the first time. The timing is perfect, Olivia continued, running her fingers through Madison's hair. Jack thinks we've been trying for a third. He'll never question that it's his. My world imploded in that moment. Not only was my wife having an affair with our nanny, but she was pregnant with another woman's child through planned insemination, and intended to pass the baby off as mine. The betrayal transcended simple infidelity. It was an elaborate conspiracy to manipulate the very foundation of family. When do we tell him? Madison asked, kissing Olivia's neck. After the startup funding comes through next month, Olivia replied with chilling pragmatism. We need that money secured before I drop the bomb. My lawyer says timing is everything if I want to maximize the settlement. They'd been planning this for months. The camera captured their detailed discussion of their California future, how they'd handle my parents' inevitable disapproval, how they'd explain to our extended families that their relationship had developed naturally after my emotional abandonment of the marriage. With shaking hands, I checked our family iPad, the kitchen device permanently mounted on the wall that synced with Olivia's iPhone. There I found hundreds of texts, between them going back nearly 5 months, each message more devastating than the last. He's so oblivious it would be comical if it weren't so sad, Olivia had written the very morning I'd surprised her with breakfast in bed for her birthday. Playing the devoted husband when it suits him, Madison had responded with a laughing emoji. If he only knew where your mind really was last night while he was touching you. Counting the days until I never have to fake it again, my wife had replied. Their betrayal had been choreographed with meticulous precision. The late work nights were actually evenings at Madison's friend's apartment. They'd created alibis for each other, with Madison texting me updates about Olivia being stuck in traffic when she was actually meeting her lover. Most devastating of all, Olivia had been siphoning funds from our joint accounts into a separate account for months, tens of thousands of dollars diverted to finance their new life together. The physical agony of betrayal crushed me with unexpected intensity. My lungs seemed to collapse, each breath a conscious struggle. I barely reached the bathroom before violent heaving emptied my stomach. For hours afterward, I alternated between silent, body-racking sobs and periods of such profound dissociation that I watched my reflection in the mirror without recognition. How would I possibly deliver a make-or-break investor presentation in 7 hours? Yet somehow, operating on a combination of shock and muscle memory, I delivered what our CEO later described as the most impressively focused pitch of your career. My voice sounded foreign to my ears, as though someone else had temporarily inhabited my body while my true self remained collapsed on the hotel bathroom floor. Instead of flying home that evening, I called my younger brother David, the constitutional law attorney whose rational mind had guided me through every major crisis since our parents' deaths. His immediate response bypassed sympathy for strategy. Do not confront her until you've secured your finances and spoken with a divorce attorney, he instructed. You make decisions from evidence, not emotion. That's always been your superpower, Jack. Don't abandon it now when the stakes have never been higher. As I hung up the phone, a strange calm settled over me. The worst had happened, the unthinkable revealed. In some perverse way, there was relief in finally knowing the truth, however devastating. Now I could stop questioning my sanity and start planning how to protect what mattered most. My relationship with my sons. The private investigator I hired uncovered truths more devastating than I could have imagined. Madison wasn't just a qualified nanny who happened to know Olivia's fitness instructor. She was Olivia's college girlfriend. They'd dated for nearly 3 years before Olivia met me. Their relationship had been serious enough that Olivia had once considered dropping out of school to follow Madison to Barcelona. Their coincidental reconnection was meticulously planned. Olivia had maintained contact with Madison through a secret email account, active throughout our entire marriage. The investigator discovered Madison had done this before, inserting herself into at least 2 other affluent families as a nanny before affairs with the wives led to divorces. It appeared to be her established pattern, always targeting families on the verge of significant financial advancement. The background checks I'd run before hiring Madison had been circumvented through sophisticated identity manipulation. The stellar references came from friends who had created false employment histories. Olivia had already transferred our son's school records to a prestigious private academy in San Francisco, paid an application fee, and scheduled admission interviews, all without my knowledge. But the most heartbreaking discovery was a video recovered from Olivia's cloud storage. Madison and Olivia laughing as they coached my 5-year-old son to call Madison Mama M instead of Miss Madison. They were already conditioning my children to accept their relationship and new family structure, while I remained unaware. As I reviewed the evidence files in my Seattle hotel room, something fundamental shifted within me. The devastation transformed into cold, focused resolve. I would not allow myself to be defined as the victim of their story. I would not permit my sons to become collateral damage in their selfish scheme. I would handle this with the strategic thinking that had built my career, protecting my children's emotional well-being even as I navigated my own pain. That night I drafted 3 documents: a personal manifesto for emotional survival, a detailed parenting plan centered on my son's stability, and a list of non-negotiable boundaries for the confrontation ahead. For the first time since discovering the betrayal, I slept deeply, waking with the clarity of purpose that comes from facing your worst fear and finding it survivable. I returned home 3 days later with a comprehensive plan and legal counsel from Massachusetts' top divorce attorney. I'd secured my finances by transferring half of our joint accounts to a new personal account, protection against further financial betrayal. I documented everything meticulously and established separate secure communication channels with my son's school and pediatrician. When I walked through our front door, Olivia seemed momentarily startled by my early return, but quickly masked it with performative affection. Madison was in the kitchen preparing dinner with the boys, her casual, "Welcome home," delivered with remarkable composure. The normalcy of the scene, my family apparently intact, dinner cooking, children laughing, created a surreal contrast with the devastating truth I carried. I maintained the performance through dinner, discussing school projects with Ryan, complimenting the meal Madison had prepared. If they noticed anything strange in my demeanor, they attributed it to travel fatigue. I waited patiently until the boys were asleep before asking them both to join me in the living room to discuss investor feedback. Once seated, them together on the sofa, me in the armchair facing them, I connected my phone to our television without a word and played the security footage. The blood drained from both their faces as they watched themselves on the screen, plotting my destruction while standing in the home I'd provided. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice eerily calm despite the violent storm inside me. Olivia recovered quickly, pivoting from shock to outraged indignation. "You were spying on me? In our own home? That's a complete violation of privacy, Jack." "Answer the question," I insisted, my voice steady. "How long have you been systematically deceiving me?" Madison sat frozen, staring at the floor. Olivia attempted to minimize the situation, claiming they'd only recently developed feelings for each other. When I revealed I knew about their college relationship, Madison's pattern with other families, the financial deception and pregnancy insemination, Olivia's tactics shifted to blame. "You were never emotionally available anyway," she accused bitterly. "Always obsessed with your precious startup. Madison and I connect on a level you and I never did." Being focused on building financial security for our family isn't equivalent to methodically betraying every vow we made, I replied. "You didn't just betray me, Olivia. You conspired to separate our children from their father and drain the financial resources I've spent years building for their future." I slid a folder across the coffee table containing copies of every piece of evidence, topped with divorce terms my attorney had prepared. Terms that were fair but would unequivocally prevent their planned cross-country move with my children. "You have 2 choices," I said quietly. Option 1. We proceed with a collaborative, amicable divorce where we both prioritize the boys' well-being above all else. You keep your personal assets, we share custody, and we minimize trauma to our children. Option 2. I take this evidence of financial fraud, identity deception, and parental alienation attempts to court, where a judge will determine the outcome. Olivia's face contorted with fury before crumpling into calculated tears. How could you threaten the mother of your children? The boys need me. The boys need both parents, I corrected calmly. I'm not threatening you, Olivia. I'm offering you a dignified way forward that acknowledges reality while protecting our children. Madison is welcome to be part of your life, but you won't use my children as pawns. The confrontation continued for hours, cycling through Olivia's attempts at manipulation. From tears to rage to false reconciliation, offers to threats about what she'd tell the boys. Through it all, I maintained the boundary of calm, evidence-based responses. By dawn, exhaustion had worn down her resistance, and she reluctantly agreed to the collaborative divorce approach, signing the preliminary custody agreement. As they packed essentials to stay at Madison's friend's apartment, Olivia attempted one final manipulation. What are you going to tell the boys? That their mother is a villain? I'll tell them the truth in an age-appropriate way, I replied. That sometimes adults realize they need different things to be happy, that both their parents will always love them tremendously no matter what, and that while our family structure is changing, their security will always be everyone's priority. After they departed, I sat alone in our living room as morning light gradually illuminated the space. For the first time, I allowed myself to fully feel the grief of losing the life I thought I had. I cried without restraint, not just for my shattered marriage, but for my children's broken home and the future I'd planned that would never come to pass. Yet beneath the grief, I felt something unexpected beginning to form. The first fragile foundation of relief. The life I'd been living was built on deception. Painful as this awakening had been, at least now I could begin rebuilding on solid ground. Daddy, when is Mommy coming home? Tyler's innocent question the next morning felt like a knife to my heart. I sat my boys at the kitchen island with their favorite chocolate chip pancakes and found words that were honest without being devastating. Mommy and Miss Madison are staying at a friend's house for a while, I explained gently. Sometimes grown-ups need some space to figure out big feelings and make important decisions. Ryan, with penetrating insight, looked directly into my eyes and asked, "Is it because Mommy loves Miss Madison now instead of you?" His question nearly shattered my composure. He had seen the truth long before I had been willing to acknowledge it. Relationships are complicated, buddy, I managed to respond, pulling him onto my lap. But I need you both to know 3 things that will never change. I love you more than anything in the entire universe. Mommy loves you just as much, and none of this is happening because of anything you did. The days that followed blurred into a fog of lawyer meetings and desperate attempts to maintain normalcy for the boys. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. I lost 18 pounds in 3 weeks, my clothes hanging loose on my frame. My brother David temporarily moved into our guest room, ensuring I was taking basic care of myself and helping maintain routines for the children. The social fallout created another dimension of pain. Word spread quickly despite our attempts at discretion. Some mutual friends took Olivia's side, swayed by her narrative that I had been emotionally absent. Others stood awkwardly on the sidelines, uncomfortable with the messiness of our situation. A few true friends rallied around me, bringing meals, offering to watch the boys, sitting with me in silence when words seemed inadequate. The humiliation was almost worse than the betrayal itself. Everyone seemed to know intimate details of my personal catastrophe. I imagined them pitying me, wondering what deficiencies had driven Olivia away. Walking into my son's school for pickup felt like navigating a gauntlet, all eyes seemingly on my failure. During sleepless nights, I obsessively questioned everything about our relationship. Had I truly been as emotionally unavailable as Olivia claimed? Should I have recognized the signs earlier? The endless replay of memories, searching for warning signs I'd missed, became a form of psychological self-torture. The darkest moment came when I overheard Ryan telling his friend during a playdate that daddies aren't as important as mommies anyway, clearly repeating something he'd heard. That night, after the boys were asleep, I broke down completely in my brother's arms. I can handle losing her, I sobbed, but I can't bear the thought of losing my place in my son's lives. David gripped my shoulders firmly. Then don't let that happen, he said with quiet intensity. Be so consistently present that no one, not Olivia, not Madison, not even your own doubts, can come between you and those boys. His words became my lifeline, a simple mission statement for the chaos that had become my life. Be present. Be consistent. Be the father they deserve, regardless of what else was crumbling around us. I started therapy the following week, not just for me, but for my ability to guide my sons through this transition with as little trauma as possible. My therapist, Dr. Bennett, specialized in high-conflict divorces and parental alienation. She helped me understand that Olivia's choices reflected her character, not my worth, and taught me how to discuss the situation with the boys in age-appropriate ways. Children are naturally egocentric, she explained. They believe everything that happens in their world is somehow related to them or caused by them. Your most important job right now is consistently reinforcing that this situation is not their fault and will not diminish your love for them. I threw myself into creating a stable, loving home environment. We established new traditions: Friday night pizza and movies, Saturday morning pancakes shaped like their favorite animals, Sunday afternoon adventures exploring different parks around Boston. I learned to do things I'd previously left to Olivia: proper laundry sorting, hair-brushing techniques for Ryan's cowlick, keeping track of Tyler's constant stream of artwork from preschool. The boys' rooms became sanctuaries of consistency. I kept their favorite toys, books, and comfort items identical at both homes to ease transitions. I maintained regular video calls with Olivia on the nights they stayed with me, never speaking negatively about her despite the continuing pain of betrayal. Children shouldn't have to carry the weight of adult conflicts or choose between parents they love. My home office became a playroom since I'd negotiated a remote work arrangement 3 days a week. My career advancement might temporarily slow, but watching my sons laugh during our afternoon park visits made the trade-off worthwhile. The startup successfully secured its Series C funding, ironically providing the financial stability that had been my goal all along, though the context for enjoying it had fundamentally changed. 4 months into our separation, I received an unexpected text from Olivia asking to meet without lawyers present. We met at a neutral coffee shop, and for the first time since the confrontation, she seemed genuinely remorseful rather than tactical. "I've been doing a lot of work in therapy," she began hesitantly. "I need to acknowledge that what Madison and I did was inexcusable. The deception, using the children as pawns. I've been trying to understand why I was capable of hurting someone who, despite our problems, never deliberately hurt me." Her apology seemed sincere, but I had learned to be cautious about Olivia's performances. "I appreciate that, but what matters now is how we move forward for the boys' sake." She nodded, tears forming. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Jack. I don't deserve it. But I am asking if we can find a way to co-parent that doesn't poison the boys' relationship with either of us. They shouldn't have to carry the weight of my mistakes." For the first time in months, we had a conversation focused genuinely on what was best for Ryan and Tyler, not on scoring points or positioning for legal advantage. We agreed to begin family therapy with the boys, establish consistent rules across both households, and present a united front on important decisions despite our personal feelings toward each other. As I drove home, I realized I had passed through the sharpest point of pain into something approaching acceptance. The life I had planned was gone, but in its place, a different future was taking shape. One with challenges I never would have chosen, but also with possibilities I hadn't considered. 6 months after the separation, I had my first date with Catherine, a pediatric nurse and single mother I met through a parents' support group. We started cautiously, meeting for coffee during school hours, both of us wary of bringing someone new into our children's lives prematurely. Catherine understood the complexity of my situation without judgment, having navigated her own difficult co-parenting relationship after her husband's sudden departure 3 years earlier. "The thing about betrayal," she told me during our third meeting, "is that it doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your narrative. The story you thought you were living suddenly reveals itself as fiction. The hardest part is creating a new story you can believe in." Her insight struck me profoundly. I had been trying to reconcile the Olivia I thought I knew with the person who could orchestrate such elaborate deception. Perhaps they were both real, the loving college girlfriend and the calculating betrayer. Just as I had been both the emotionally distant workaholic and the devastated, devoted father fighting for his children. The divorce was finalized 9 months after Discovery Day. Madison's pregnancy had progressed, and they had moved to a townhouse 20 minutes away rather than relocating to California as originally planned. Our custody arrangement gave me the boys 5 nights out of 14. Not ideal, but enough to remain deeply involved in their daily lives. We agreed to major medical and educational decisions being made jointly, and I secured right of first refusal for childcare, meaning Olivia had to offer me the opportunity to watch the boys before asking anyone else during her parenting time. The most surprising development came during a parent-teacher conference for Ryan, which Olivia and I attended together. His teacher praised his resilience and adjustment, noting that unlike many children of divorce, Ryan seemed secure in both his home environments. "He told me something interesting last week," the teacher shared. He said, "I used to have one home that felt scary sometimes because the grown-ups were pretending. Now I have 2 homes where nobody has to pretend anymore. Children are remarkably perceptive." On the walk to the parking lot, Olivia turned to me with unexpected vulnerability. "I think he's right. I was pretending for so long. With you. With myself. I'm not proud of how I ended things, but I can't regret that the pretending is over. You deserve someone who loves you completely, not someone performing the role of wife." Her words, perhaps the most honest she'd spoken in years, offered a strange kind of closure. The Olivia I had married was indeed a performance, sustained for years until Madison offered an escape route. The realization was painful but ultimately liberating. I hadn't lost a genuine connection. I'd been released from an elaborate illusion. My relationship with Catherine developed slowly, with deliberate care for our children's emotional well-being. 6 months into dating, we arranged a playdate with all 3 children at a neutral location, a local children's museum where they could interact naturally without pressure. Ryan and Tyler delighted in showing Catherine's daughter, Sophie, their favorite exhibits, forming connections independent of their parents' relationship. A year after the divorce, Madison gave birth to a baby girl. Watching my sons meet their half-sister for the first time, I experienced a complex mixture of emotions: sadness that this child represented the final dissolution of my marriage, but also appreciation that my boys would have this additional connection in their lives. The baby's existence was not her fault, regardless of the circumstances of her conception. 3 years have passed since that devastating night in Seattle. My life looks nothing like I had planned, yet it has taken shape in ways that feel increasingly authentic and fulfilling. The boys, now 8 and 6, split time between my home and Olivia's, with a co-parenting relationship that has evolved from agonizing to functional. We celebrate their birthdays together, attend school functions as a united front, and communicate regularly about their needs and achievements. Madison remains part of their lives as Olivia's partner and their half-sister's mother. I've learned to see her not as the catalyst for my marriage's destruction, but as another adult who cares for my children, an uncomfortable piece, but peace nonetheless. My relationship with Catherine blossomed slowly into something I never expected to find again: genuine partnership built on transparency and shared values. Our blended family weekends are chaotic and joyful. Her daughter Sophie has become the honorary sister my boys adore. We married last spring in a small ceremony where Ryan and Tyler served as my best men, their matching bow ties slightly crooked in all the photos, images that capture perfectly the beautiful imperfection of our reconstructed lives. Professionally, I've found balance between ambition and presence. After our startup's successful acquisition, I accepted a senior role with more reasonable hours and the flexibility to coach Ryan's soccer team and attend Tyler's speech therapy appointments. Interestingly, this balance has enhanced rather than hindered my career trajectory. My experience navigating complex personal crisis while maintaining professional performance became an unexpected leadership asset. The most profound change has been internal. The man who once defined success through external achievements and perfectly curated family photos has been replaced by someone who measures life's value differently. I've learned that strength isn't found in controlling outcomes or maintaining appearances, but in the resilience to face devastating truths and still choose compassion, for my children, for myself, And eventually, even for those who betrayed me. Last month, during a routine custody exchange, Olivia mentioned they were considering moving to Chicago for Madison's career opportunity. My first reaction wasn't panic about distance or legal maneuvering, but genuine concern for how this might affect the boys' stability and relationships. We had a thoughtful conversation about options and compromises, ending with a commitment to make decisions centered on the children's well-being. As we finished talking, Olivia hesitated before saying, "You know, you're a much better father now than you ever were during our marriage. It's like you finally found yourself when everything fell apart." She wasn't wrong. The devastating betrayal that once defined my life has become just one chapter in a longer, richer story. The security camera footage that captured my world collapsing now seems like a strange gift. Painful beyond measure, but ultimately the catalyst for authenticity I might never have otherwise found. From betrayal to breakdown to unexpected breakthrough, that's my story. Not the story I would have chosen, but one I've come to value for the growth it forced and the genuine life it ultimately created. If you're in the midst of betrayal right now, know this: the pain is not permanent. The shock, the humiliation, the sleepless nights, they do subside. What feels like an ending can become a beginning if you allow it to be. Choose dignity over revenge. Choose growth over bitterness. Choose to be the parent your children need rather than the victim your betrayer created. Trust your instincts, document everything, lean on true friends, and seek professional help. Be gentle with yourself on the hard days and celebrate small victories. Create new traditions. Find joy in unexpected places. Remember that your worth was never determined by someone else's ability to recognize it. Have you experienced betrayal? Share your 3-word healing mantra in the comments. Mine is truth sets free. For those going through this right now, what's your biggest question? Drop it below and I'll respond personally. Thank you for letting me share my story. Sometimes our darkest chapters lead to our brightest futures, not despite the pain, but because of how it transforms us.